Have you ever really stopped to realize what you say no to when you're saying yes? What I mean by that is we spend so much of our time as business builders, entrepreneurs, saying yes to things, yes to people. We don't really realize what we're saying no to. And when you say yes to something, you are actually inadvertently saying no to something else. And after being an entrepreneur for 11 years, making millions of pounds, and at the age of 33 now, I'm starting to see life very differently. I'm starting to start a family now, and I just start to see things very, very differently. And for me, one of my biggest downfalls as an entrepreneur, if I have to be honest, was being a yes man. And I always tell people that our past really is a compass for our future. And unless we figure out our past, we will keep creating the past in the future. And I want to break that down a little bit more, because a lot of people spend their present running away from their past. And running from your past, that is a race that you are never going to win, believe me. And, you know, for me, I lived in a constant cycle, in a loop of disappointment from, you know, being raised by a mum and having an absent father and feeling very let down about that, after hoping so many times that someone will become a father figure in my life and being let down through multiple friendships, through a bad relationship, through sports careers, just constantly create a cycle of never being good enough, almost but never quite there. Even through school, I was always almost there, and it carried all the way into my whole university. The whole cycle of my life, like I say, was almost but not quite good enough. And I felt a deep sense of frustration, constantly feeling deserted, abandoned. And so when I first started my journey into entrepreneurship, I lived with that trauma in me, in that I realized that no one's coming to save me, so I can't trust anybody. Basically, I had like ridiculous trust issues in business, and that turns into a very, very toxic cycle of always wanting to be the savior. And so when I look into my business career, especially in first years, I had this like innate desire to always show up, always be there, always be on time, never let people down. But when you say yes to things, as I said, you're saying no to something else. And what I come to realize was I reached this level of success, earned all this money, and had all these people around me. I was leading thousands and thousands of people, and still do to this day, but realized who's actually with me and who's for me. And that's something that I really want to speak about in this video, because if you can identify that, you might start switching those yeses to nos. There is a price to pay for being a yes man, and there's actually a bigger cost to then saying no, because you create this mess for yourself, and I'll explain it in this video. When you say yes to being there for somebody else, typically that period of time that you spend coming to their savior means that time is now gone from somewhere else, because we all know we're not stupid, we can't save time. The idea of saving time is actually just a complete myth. You can't save time, right? You can only spend it. And so when you decide to say yes, you decide to spend some of that time here. That means that your time can no longer be spent there, right? And what this entrepreneurial kind of space and treadmill is constantly saying yes, 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 and pulling yourself away from somewhere else. So I'll give you an example. I found myself leading people, being there for people, supporting people through their problems, but actually I was saying no to myself, to my quiet time, to my peace, to my family, to this, to that. And it became quite toxic. But once you've claimed that role of being a savior, well, you're there forever. Because let me tell you something about people. When you do something for someone once, they'll appreciate it. But if you do it again, they'll anticipate that you're going to do it again. Once you do it again, they'll expect it. Then they'll feel entitled to it, and eventually they'll feel dependent on it. When you become the dependent side of a relationship, you are now enslaved to that role, where people, not only do they expect it and they feel entitled, but they literally depend on you. And like I said, you're enslaved to that role now, and by you saying no will destroy the illusion that they see you through in this relationship, which is most of the time not someone of value, not someone that they care for, not someone that they want to see win, but someone who is just a get out clause. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked for money, support, to be a shoulder to cry on, but then roles are never reversed. And what we then do is we then get angry at that person. We then actually get upset and frustrated, and we blame the world and we get angry at people. But what we don't understand is that we created that role by ourselves by saying yes. And you're going to come to a place where you need to find the courage to start saying no, and you start making those trade-offs, and you start paying the price of now saying no, which actually I call it cost, because it's going to cost a lot. It's going to cost your ego, because you're going to have people that don't like it. You're probably going to have people that have things to say about it. You go from being hero to villain quite often. And like I said, we should never blame other people, because we created that role for ourselves. What I realized through my past experiences and understanding that, look, we all have trauma in our lives, by the way, and there's a lot of people that like to say, I've seen people say things like, oh, trauma doesn't exist and whatever, but trauma is a real thing, and we all carry it. We all carry trauma and grief, and people handle it and carry it in different ways. What I realized was my past beat the self-worth out of me so much that I was trying to earn my worth through doing things for other people. And so you'll see that quite a lot in the entrepreneurial space, where people that don't have results, they try and earn their worthiness by trying to live through other people. What I mean by that is you'll have people creating courses or creating content or trying to advise people or coach people when they don't have the results themselves. And it's not because they're not good at what they do or they don't know what they're doing, but it's simply because they are clinging on to that worth through someone else's results. So it's like someone saying you've changed my life gives them the hit that they need, which they actually need from going and experiencing themselves. And that happened to me quite a lot. So I was living my worth. I was earning my worth through living through other people by trying to be their hero. So I'd help someone and I'd say, Dan, like, you really helped me and you changed my life, and that would give me such a good hit. But really, that's quite a toxic thing to do, because now you're connected, you're enslaved by the idea that I have to help people to feel good. I just can't encourage you enough to think about the role you're playing in other people's lives, because if you have taken up that role of being the one that people now rely on out of feeling good about it, or you put yourself in a position where, you know what happened to me, where I had all these relationships propped up on what they could get from me, or the idea that I can come to their savior and it'll make me feel good, or they feel good. You start to realize that now they don't value who they are, they value what they can get from you. That's probably a very dangerous place to be. That is the most dangerous place to be in the entrepreneurial space. So, you know, now I'm 33, I'm starting a family, I'm starting to learn how to say no to things. I'm learning how to say no to things and understand the repercussions by accepting that. And I want to share this in closing, because this is where my faith steps into everything. This is where my faith really becomes a solid foundation, is that I'm no longer living to please people. I'm no longer led by people's opinions on me or people's satisfaction by what I do. I live with a kingdom conscious, meaning that I'm only really living to please God. And I understand that as long as I do the right thing, then God will be happy with me at the end of the day. Because if we chase the opinions and happiness of other people, then we are literally a walking, talking slave. Like, we are going to be constantly at the mercy of other people, treading on eggshells. You will never be able to truly express yourself. You'll constantly feel like you're performing. And like I said, you'll become a yes man. And I promise you now, I became a yes man. I was a yes man for a very, very long time. And I built my whole identity around being the one that everybody could rely on. The truth is this: everybody wants to be saved, but no one wants the savior. There's only one savior, and that's through Christ. If we do everything off our own merit, we can only go so far. So this is my encouragement to you. From my years of experience, my years of ups and downs and rounds, becoming a yes man, taking on way too much than I could actually handle in the pursuit of other people's acceptance and to feel worthy enough to be honest. And now I live very, very freely. In fact, every time I say no, I know that I'm saying yes to myself, my peace, my family, and my ability to actually then perform and show up for people who really want it. And in closing, this whole thought process, and this was really stirred by a great friend and mentor of mine who recently, unfortunately, lost his wife. And, you know, he said to me that he spent so many years chasing success, being there for other people, when all along he could have spent an extra 30 minutes or an hour in bed with his wife, or been there for her a little bit more. And obviously that perspective comes from a very real lived experience that hopefully none of us has to experience. But you can't buy experience. So when you have somebody in your life that can pass something on, especially as valuable as that, you only need to take care of that and really take hold of it and implement it into your life.